I don't even want to say Bashaud Breeland's like causing drama because technically, he's not with the team.
Mhm.
He's not on an NFL roster right now, and I think he does have a legitimate gripe. I think he does have a reason to be upset. Connor made a really good tweet. I should have pulled it up about how Bashaud Breeland's career earnings were only like $9 million, and the dude has totally outplayed that. He deserves to make more money. I think I've pulled up Bashaud's Twitter account here because he's spent some time kind of airing out his grievances here on Twitter, which I think rightfully so. There's been some times where he's like, "Hey, man, like I'm not even asking for a multi-year deal. I just want the money I deserve." Like that's all he's asking for, and I think he has every right to do that. So, what do you think about this whole Brashad Breeland saga? And I know we've seen tweets of him saying like, "Hey, this isn't all about the Chiefs. Like this isn't directed at the Chiefs." So, what do you think about this? And do you think he ends up in Kansas City, or where do you think he goes?
It sucks, man. I
Yeah.
feel for the guy. I mean, his rookie contract was like 2.7 million. He went to Green Bay. It was under $1 million. He played for the Chiefs on a cheap deal. It just really sucks for him. And he's a guy that has been a reliable player. He had that contract, I believe it was in Carolina, lined up that was a multi-year kind of bigger deal, much bigger than what he had already got. Then it fell through because of the injury, so that sucks. Came back, and it's one of those situations where obviously the Chiefs should want him to come back because he's a reliable player. You can take the good with the bad with the penalties and stuff like that. He's a reliable outside cornerback, and those don't grow on trees. Like
Right.
DeAndre Baker's coming back from injury. Mike Hughes is a slot guy. L'Jarius Sneed, small sample size, whether it's on the inside or outside. Charvarius Ward, up and down. So Breeland has been Breeland, and that is a reliable top 32. He is a starting cornerback that's reliable in the NFL. And you can bring up the PFF grades of passer rating against and catch rate and all that stuff. He passes the eye test. He passes the stats test, the advanced stats test. He's a good guy. He seems like he was working out with, I believe it was Lincoln Prep. I could be totally
Mm-hmm.
100%
You're right.
off. Yeah, it was. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
During the suspension, he's just a good dude and he's a good leader. He's outspoken now. I don't blame him one bit. He wants to get paid. He's been worth way more than he has made. And now at age, I think he's at 29, pretty close to it, if not.
Yep.
It's one of those situations where it just sucks for him because as the time ticks and he comes back to wherever he signs, I think is going to be a 1 year deal. That's just how I feel at this point.
Right. Yeah.
And once he turns 30, the odds of him getting that multi-year contract are very slim. So life isn't fair. And Bashaud Breeland's an example of that. Granted, he's made quite a bit of money compared to the average person, but in relation to what he's worth, he definitely got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just pulling up. So I was searching Bashaud Breeland's name on Google. One of the results that came up, you know how like sometimes Google has like questions that you can like click on and expand. The first question was, "Is Bashaud Breeland good?"
That seems like a Chiefs Twitter question almost a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of a loaded question. I didn't like that the article they chose like there to like feature the excerpt. Bashaud Breeland is good, right? I mean, he's not a bad football player. I was just looking at his Twitter as well as I mentioned his Twitter feed up here. He's been on it a lot. But Good Morning Football tweeted out how long ago was this tweet from Good Morning Football that he quote tweeted in May 19th, and it said the most underappreciated cornerback in the NFL right now is he quote tweeted and said this is a no brainer. Then he quote tweeted May 20th, Next Gen Stats tweet. It said, something about William Jackson allowed the lowest completion percentage and the second lowest average target separation. Number two on that list is Brashad Breeland. He's allowed a 50% completion percentage, 50.7, and it's number two low. It's better than Stephon Gilmore, better than Denzel Ward, better than Xavier Howard, who I think is quite possibly could be the best cornerback in the league. Is Xavier Howard could be. So Bashaud Breeland is good. Like let's not get it twisted. People are talking about like, well, Mike Hughes is going to be a straight swap if he goes to the Vikings. No, he's not. Mike Hughes is a lottery pick. This is how Joshua Briscoe put it. And I thought it was a really good way to put it. That Mike Hughes is a lottery ticket with already a couple numbers scratched off. I think that that's a good way to put Mike Hughes. Bashaud Breeland, you know what you're going to get. And Bashaud Breeland adding to this room would be, I would feel a lot more comfortable. I am uneasy a little bit about the Chiefs cornerback room and the Chiefs depth at corner. We talk about L'Jarius Sneed and how both you and I love L'Jarius Sneed, but how will he perform in a 17-game schedule as an outside corner? Can he be a lockdown guy? We don't know. He did suffer a collarbone injury. He had another injury, I think, too, and he missed a little bit of time there. But that's just things that you don't know. But Bashaud Breeland is something that you do know, right? And that's something that you kind
Mhm.
of want to take into this season like that. So, what do you think about just the cornerback room as a whole now? Would it make you feel a lot better if Bashaud Breeland comes back, or are you good with just going into camp how the Chiefs are?
I am relatively okay with the group they have now, but with that said, I'd feel a lot better if Bashaud Breeland was a part of that group because personally, I like L'Jarius Sneed on the outside long term because the ceiling of a shutdown perimeter cornerback on the boundary is higher than a really good slot guy. And I think you can get a reliable slot guy easier than you can get a reliable boundary cornerback. So long term, I'm fine with that. But this year, keep Sneed inside as long as you can. I mean,
Yeah,
he has the size to go against big slots. He's physical enough. He's quick enough to go against the smaller slot guys. He's smart. He has smooth hips. He does everything well up to this point. He has good ball skills. There's still some things that need to be ironed out. Again, the sample size is so small that that's something that needs to be taken into account. Charvarius Ward on the outside, like the Chiefs have talent and I'd be fine with Ward and Sneed outside and then Rashad Fenton maybe in the slot or Mike Hughes or whoever it is. We can't count on Mike Hughes to be good. We can't count on DeAndre Baker to be good. We can't count on DeAndre Baker to play a significant role. We
right.
can't count on Bo Pete Keys to break out. Like, it's a lot of what if or this guy could when you know what Bashaud Breeland's going to do. He will do this. He can do this. He will do that. It just makes sense. And he's still a free agent. The Chiefs still have a need. He's tweeted and said, listen, this isn't at Kansas City. They'll always have a special place in my heart, blah, 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 which kind of reads as I've moved on, but I'll still remember the good times I had. That's how I interpreted it. But that's
Right.
Twitter 101. That's for our Twitter Basics podcast that we are starting up soon. But overall, it just makes sense to do that for both sides. I think that he's not going to get paid very much. The Chiefs have a little bit of money lying around. They can pay him a little bit. He can come back where he's familiar. He can have another good year. Then he can try to hit the free agent market and just rinse and repeat.
So I'm looking at some of his tweets. I think that this one is a good one. He says, "Every team I played for threw me in the fire, demanded me to play at starter level. I didn't miss a game for injuries. I started for 3 teams in 7 years. Rather, it was designed or earned that way. Check the stats. 9 million career earnings once again. He makes a really good point. Another one here. You think I'm asking for 10 mil or something? Like I'm really out here pricing myself. That was the narrative the past 2 years. Ha ha. I just say, give me what I deserve. Don't believe the hype. I'm not a rapper. I make music, so I don't believe that either. Ha ha. So I think that there's some, we see this during the draft too. Like, oh, is he really committed to football because he likes to make music and he likes to have hobbies? Is he committed to football because of that? Which is an absolute, excuse my French, it's a bullshit narrative that it's out there that people can like two things. Like that's possible. You can like two different things. Like I write about the Royals and the Chiefs. Does that question my love for football? No, it doesn't. You can have a hobby outside of your work and it's okay. I just think that using that against Bashaud Breeland is ridiculous. This is a pro Bashaud Breeland podcast. If Bashaud Breeland ever wanted to come on the podcast, he could. I sent him a DM that night. He said, like, I really need to be on a podcast. I said, hey, man, floor's yours if you need a podcast. Sadly, didn't respond. But I think he got a lot of DMs about Chiefs podcast because, Jordan, you might not know this, but we're not the only Chiefs podcast.
We're not. There's another Chiefs podcast out there that covers the Chiefs and the NFL. There's another one.
Yeah, I found that out earlier this week. when I saw all these people, because Bashaud Breeland said I want to go on a podcast, so I was like, okay, he'll come on our podcast because we're the only Chiefs podcast. So he didn't come on our podcast, and then I saw all these other ones saying like, hey, we talk about the Chiefs on our podcast. And I said, hold on a second, I thought we were the only ones to do that. That will do it for today's podcast preview. If you enjoyed the preview, make sure to check out the full show out on your favorite podcast provider. Don't know how to find it? Go to smarturl.it/roughing. Got a splash page. You can find your favorite provider there and find the show there, or go into the search bar of your favorite show, type in Roughing the Kicker. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. It really helps us out. If you enjoy the channel and the podcast as a whole, subscribe and obviously get that notification bell on because you don't want to miss any more podcast previews. We'll be back with another video soon. So until then, I'll talk to you next time.